But what I am saying is the disparity between the executives and the creatives is way too vast, and that's what the Sag-Aftra seeks to remedy.
What's up, everybody? So the WGA and the Sag-Aftra strike have been going on for some time now, and just this week the WGA have come to an agreement and they should be headed back to work. Traditionally, these strikes represent the film and television industry, but now they have their eyes set on another industry, the gaming industry. We'll get into what that means about your most anticipated releases coming up, but before we do, let's take a quick look at some interesting stories that came out this past week. Let's get into Casual Bites. And for those who want to skip this section, I'll leave a timestamp here and there will be one in the timeline.
Rick and Morty, we're back, baby!
First up, season 7 of Rick and Morty is set to premiere next month, and we have this little teaser.
Do we know anyone sober? Have you been drinking?
On a Thursday?
This showcases the new talent that we have taken over for co-creator and the original voices of Rick and Morty. According to The Hollywood Reporter, there'll be 2 actors this time around, and they're keeping the names of the actors confidential until the season premiere.
こんな極限の状況下だ。
何も恥ずかしがる必要はありません。俺たちと。無理、下品、深い。
This video might receive acclaim for using that clip, so please make sure that you share and subscribe. But this one is for my anime lovers. As many of you know, Zom 100 burst into the scene offering up a hilarious, uplifting, and unique take on the zombie genre. This is bound to be very disappointing news for fans of the series.
There is just news. There is no good or bad.
Zom 100 episode 10 and beyond, until further notice, are on indefinite hiatus.
That is bad news.
As far as I can tell, there hasn't been any official statement, but I assume it's due to production issues. Honestly, this is a colossal bummer, but if this gives the creators and staff room to breathe, then I'm all for it. Switching gears into gaming, game engine Unity has been in hot water for the past couple weeks, stemming from a new fee policy that they rolled out and promptly sent back to the drawing board after the immediate and loud backlash that they received. Charges incurred for multiple downloads of the same game, and what seems like a 20-cent charge applied retroactively when a game reaches a certain number of sales. They've reworked a lot of this policy, but with the walkback and the doublespeak, developers have lost trust with the people who wrote this policy up in the first place. This may cripple them in a way that they never recover from.
They're hackers.
Hackers penetrate and ravage private and publicly owned computer systems.
This was a crazy story. Sony has reportedly become a victim of a ransomware attack. Usually, this means that someone's data has been encrypted by a malicious software and ransomed for the decryption key. This seems more like a hack job where their data was siphoned and threatened to sell to the highest bidder or released online. The group responsible seemingly posted hack material, but Sony's like,
He is of no consequence.
Apparent ransomware newcomer Ransomed VC is taking responsibility for the attack. We don't know if they have more sensitive information that would sway Sony to pay up, and the deadline to pay was 3 days ago, so we'll be keeping you posted as soon as new facts come out.
We're all here because we're committed to the biggest question of all. What's out there?
This was a story with a surprising twist. Starfield has more than 10 million players, but here's the rub. It is now the lowest rated Bethesda title on Steam. This is how Claire Lewis over at GameSpot describes it. Rather than being bogged down with bugs, players are complaining about awkwardly stiff NPC facial animations, an extremely limited number of romanceable companions, and far too much procedural generated content that sees immersion broken when players stumble across the same named NPC's corpse in the same exact spot inside the same exact cave on 3 different planets. Other complaints include the lack of any sort of codex or compendium to keep track of lore and learn more about the history of the game's factions, the absence of any groundside mode of transport like a rover or alien mount to make planet exploration less onerous, and perhaps worst of all, downright painful interstellar dogfights. So it looks like it did indeed come to the table a little undercooked.
It's not even pink, it's raw!
And no doubt, Bethesda is hard at work taking feedback and creating patches. But as the saying goes, you don't get a second chance at a first impression, so they just might be playing catch up here on out. But with all that being said, there is no story like a redemption story. Now, let's move on to our main story.
Today is about Sag-Aftra, and it's about solidarity.
Members of Sag-Aftra have voted in favor of authorizing a strike for video game performers and actors. So we're talking about stunt men and women, along with mocap and of course, voice actors. But this doesn't mean a strike right out of the gate. They finished the first step, which is the authorization to strike. The next step will be negotiations for higher pay, but if they can't come to an agreement, then step 3 is a strike. Now, let's address why strike? Well, if you look at the salaries of majority of the CEOs in the game industry, some are hundreds of millions of dollars, but a lot of the ones that I found are at least tens of millions, which to me is a very clear sign that they value their CEOs more than they value the people that are actually making the games. For example, Jim Ryan. According to Google, he makes $12.5 million for his salary, not to mention $14 million in bonuses and $100 million worth of PlayStation stock. And we're going to break this down just a little bit. God of War made almost $800 million, and Cory Barlog, who directed on that, only made $4 million. Christopher Judge, who actually brought Kratos to life, only made $1 million, and it's arguable that Judge's portrayal of Kratos is what really sold the game. My point is, Jim Ryan had no creative input in a game that garnered $800 million, but he's getting paid 6 times more than the ones that did. Now, I'm not saying that their salaries should be swapped. CEOs manage multiple studios, other executives, the money, so I'm not saying that CEOs don't do anything. But what I am saying is the disparity between the executives and the creatives is way too vast, and that's what the Sag-Aftra seeks to remedy. Now, what does that mean for your most anticipated games? Obviously, delays. But as a community, we should want to see the people who created this world, who took us from our couch into the battles of our dreams and into narrow hallways filled with monsters from our nightmares. We should want to see them thrive. Let me know what you think about that and all the other stories that we covered in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next Sunday. But until then, keep it casual. Peace.